afflicted by calamity, basically financial calamity, and we relieve him of his burden. If you are in debt to some individuals, to some people, and then you acquire money to pay them off, then you must thereafter pay them off. If you are in debt and after you have acquired the money, now you could pay off the creditors or whoever you owe money to, you could pay them off. You must pay them off. However, there is no legal process here in America where you could actually do this. Once you declare bankruptcy and they drop the debts, they're dropped. And then if you want to come back and go to Bank of America and tell them, I owe you the money I have, I was able to sort of acquire this money and I would like to pay you off. They don't have a process for this. In this case, you don't need to pay them back. You want to be wara' and you want to be cautious, piously cautious. You could donate this money. You could donate this money to any charitable causes if you would like to do so. But you do not need to pay them back because there is no process for that.
The next question is, are we allowed to wipe over our socks for wudu?
Wiping over the socks when it comes to wudu has been reported by about 10 companions. Ibn al-Munzir mentioned the names of about 10 companions. Ammar was one of them, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu was one of them. Many other companions, it has been authentically traceable to them that they wiped over their socks. The hadith that is reported by Abu Dawood from al-Mughira about the Prophet wiping over his socks and sandals is questionable, and it is not our main proof on the permissibility of wiping on socks because of the question of authenticity of this hadith. However, the practice of those Sahaba, particularly 10 or 12 Sahabas, and some have traced this back to 12 Sahaba authentically. The practice of those Sahaba is our main proof on the permissibility of this practice. Now the scholars among themselves in the different madhahib disagree over the kind of socks that you could wipe on, the kinds of socks or the material, the fabric, and there are a lot of disagreements. I would tell you that, you will find the easier position in the Hanbali madhab. They do not require those socks to be thick enough to basically not allow the water to seep through to your skin. Even if the socks are would allow the water, they would say thick socks, but those thick socks, their definition of thick socks is that they are they don't fall off your feet. They stand on your feet and you can actually walk in them for a distance. But to seep through for the water to seep through the socks, this is not a problem in the Hanbali madhab. It is a problem in the Hanafi madhab because they have an agreement within the madhab that if water could seep through the socks, Al-Kasani reported this in Bada' al-Sana'a, that those socks are not appropriate for wiping. However, to make tanaqqul between the mazahib or to be of one particular madhab and for a particular need, if a particular concession will make your practice of the deen easier, make your life easier, to have tanaqqul between the mazahib for a need occasionally is permissible according to the majority of the scholars. So you could take that position from the Hanbali madhab, which will allow you to wipe on socks that will stay on your foot and you could walk in them for a distance, even if the water will seep through them and get your skin wet. Wiping on socks is an important concession for many of us, particularly people who will otherwise not pray. If we tell them you have to take your socks off at work and wash your feet in the sink, they may not pray. So what do you think would be a better idea for those people? To give them that concession from the Hanbali Madhab and allow them to use it so that they could pray on time, or to cause them hardship in their deen and fitna, basically. So it's okay to wipe on socks.
Ahsanallahu alaikum. The next question says, Assalamu alaikum. I know that we go through periods of low Iman and spiritual lows. However, over the past 2 years, I feel that I have remained in the lows and can't get back up to where I was. I feel myself unmotivated and I'm not as passionate as I once was, although I have the strong desire to get close to Allah. I fear for myself and dying in this state of low Iman. Can you please give me a prescription/strategy that can help me get back to the closeness I once had?
Okay, so that's the $1 billion question. You know, the shaitan said, وَلَأَقْعُدَنَّ لَهُمْ فَبِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي لَأَقْعُدَنَّ لَهُمْ صِرَاطَكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ ثُمَّ لَآتِيَنَّهُم مِّن بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ وَعَنْ أَيْمَانِهِمْ وَعَنْ شَمَائِلِهِمْ وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُم شَاكِرِينَ. So in Surah Al-A'raf, the shaitan said when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah commanded him to prostrate before Adam, he refused to prostrate, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cursed him because of his disobedience and his rebellion. Then the shaitan promised that he will sit by the straight path, ambush the children of Adam by sitting by the straight path. لَقَعُدَنَّ لَهُمْ صِرَاطَكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ ثُمَّ لَآتِيَنَّهُم مِّن بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ. Then I will come to them from before, from in front of them, and from their back, and from their right side, and from their left side. And Ibn Abbas and other scholars talk to us about, the front and the back, and the left side and the right side. And they said, from the front, meaning that I will adorn, that I will create doubts in their hearts concerning the hereafter, and from their back, meaning that I will adorn the dunya for them. I'll beautify the dunya for them. I'll make the dunya very tempting for them, and I will create doubts about the hereafter for them. And then from the right side, I will make the hasanat very burdensome for them, distasteful to them. And from the left side, I'll make the sayyat very tempting. And I'll beautify the sayyat for them and facilitate and make easy the sayyat for them. So if you know this plan, if you know his plan, his plan is basically to take away from you your faith, your Iman, and your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That to counter this plan, how do you counter this plan? You counter this plan by making more hasanat, and certainly there are, it will be a long discussion, but the Prophet ﷺ told us how to counter the plan of the shaitan. When it comes to the hereafter, that he will raise doubts in our hearts concerning the hereafter, it requires reminders. It requires for us to be reminded and to remind ourselves of the hereafter. That is why basically the first station of the hereafter, which is death, is the most tangible for us, right? That's why Uthman used to be like touched by death and news of death even more than news of the rest of the stations, because it is the most tangible station and it's the first station of the hereafter. If you need to basically remind yourself tangibly of the hereafter, visit the graves, wash the dead, attend the janazat. And we have plenty of them every year every day or every few days in your community. You will hear of some janazah. Go attend them. Go see the burial itself. Get down in the grave if that is what it may take you. Get down in the grave. If you're a sister, you could do some of this work. Like we need people to wash the mauta, to wash the dead, and so on. Get a little bit closer to death, so that it is not too remote in your perception. Because if it is too remote in your perception, it will not have the proper effect. Get a little bit closer to death and dying people. You don't necessarily need to be morbid. We're not talking about being morbid. We're talking about being awake to the reality of this life, to the transience of this life. We're talking about being alert, about being alert to the phases that you will go through and the stations that you will go through until you meet your Lord. So that's one thing you could do. When it comes to the dunya, I'll be beautifying the dunya for them. Just reflect on the transience of this dunya. Reflect on the unpredictability of this dunya. Visit sick people. That will remind you of the unpredictability of this dunya. You go to any hospital, see how perfectly healthy people, overnight, they just became bedridden. Perfectly healthy people. You go to your doctor for a checkup, he runs a few tests, and then you hear the news, you have this or that. That's the unpredictability of this dunya. Reflect on the unpredictability, but get closer to this by, visiting sick people. That is why, visiting the sick and following the janazah and all of these things have been prescribed for us, because the Prophet ﷺ came with a counter plan for this, satanic plan, the counter plan that will basically help us overcome his makr and his conspiracy has been all spelled out for us by the Prophet ﷺ. The hasanat and the sayyat, and how do you handle this? I think there are so many tips, time is running out, but environment is extremely important. Get yourself in an environment of righteousness, an environment that basically promotes the hasanat, that values righteousness. Keep yourself attached to the community of believers. Go to the masjid. When you go to the masjid, you will find people who value the hasanat, who honor the hasanat. Even subconsciously, this will affect you. People who despise sayyat, people who despise wrongdoing, stay in the proper environment. The seeds that are sown in the wrong soil will never grow and will never come to fruition. So the environment is extremely important if you want to get back that closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Jazakumullah khair. The following question is, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How can we test a person, or how can we test that a person is pious, righteous, and religious before marrying him or her? Also, how to find someone who is righteous and religious?
How do you
find someone who is righteous and religious?
How do you find someone who's righteous and religious? That's very hard, honestly speaking. But you may not also be that righteous. It's very hard on all sides. But you're trying to find the best that you can find. At the end of the day, you'll still need to get married. And you try to find the best that you can find. Testing people, we don't have, the idea here is, some people think that Islam does not allow you in your room to figure out or to familiarize yourself with your potential life partner, and some people feel that this is actually a problem, like to just get into this relationship, which is meant to be a permanent relationship for life, without enough knowledge. A brother approached me and said that I wanted to propose to a certain sister, and her family is not a Muslim family, and they want us to date for 3 or 4 years before we get married. And it sounds a little bit shocking to at least me. It's probably to most of you. It is shocking because he wants to have a pure, wholesome relationship. And he's being told that no, you could actually have everything that marriage would offer a man, but without the commitment, or that is thought to offer a man, without the commitment of the marriage itself. And if this person is not pious, then that sounds like a good deal. If you're not really observant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the bounds of Allah, it sounds like a good deal. Keep in mind that in Islam, marriage is not one step. We have 3 different steps. We have the first one, which is engagement. We have the second one, which is the aqd. People call this in different cultures different names. But that is the contract, basically. That's the marriage contract. And then we have the third step, which is the actual bina, consummation. It is the wedding. So these are 3 different distinct steps. Between engagement and getting contracted, or getting married, during that period, you're allowed to have discussions. You would have already asked. You would have already asked and asked many people. If someone wanted to work for you, you will ask for a letter of reference. This is a marriage. So you would have asked about her, him, their friends, family members, whoever would know about them. You could have also observed them. If you go to college, if you both go to the same college, you may have been able to observe him or her for the last 2 years, their conduct, the way they act, the way they speak, and so on. And all of this would give you some, even after you get married, it may take you years to figure out each other, and to really know each other's qualities, or to have like good knowledge of the qualities of each other. But what we want to do is we want to do our best. First, you're asking, that is before the engagement, and you try to figure out if this is a suitable person for you in every regard. And then after the engagement, you're having discussions among yourselves at her home, in the presence of her family members. Family members also could step out and allow you without khalwa, doors open, but they could just walk away, go into the kitchen and leave you in the living room so that you can talk about various issues and see if you have enough commonalities and if you have enough harmony. And that is all before the aqd. That's all before the aqd. And then after the aqd, you could go out together. You could, that would be, if we borrow this terminology, that would be the form of halal dating. That's after you're contracted, after the aqd. And then but there is a promise still that you will not consummate the marriage. This is your promise to the wali. Aqd means that it is just a contract. Consummation will be deferred until we have the wedding party, or until it's time to move in with each other, or until whatever time we agree on. Even if you're not going to move in with each other, but you'll consummate the marriage, and there is an agreement among the 2 families that the marriage will be consummated, then that's fine. But then during this period, before the consummation, you will be able to go out together, your wife and husband at this point. And that will give you, an opportunity basically to test each other and to figure out each other a little bit more. But eventually, to really know each other, you will really need to get married. Because that is when you move in together, that is when you, even people, you look at the divorce rates among people who have been in some relationship dating for 3 or 4 years, in general, in the larger community. You could be dating for 2 to 3 years or 4 years, and then you get married and you look at the divorce rates in the first year after marriage. You figure these people know each other quite well. They've been living together for 3 to 4 years. You'll find the divorce rates are still high in the first year after marriage, because that is when the relationship becomes a different form of relationship. It requires commitment, requires loyalty and fidelity, and requires so much more than a casual relationship or a relationship without the commitment of marriage. So do your best. Islam does provide you enough opportunity to figure out each other and to test each other. Do your best, and then have tafweed. Delegate the matter to Allah. Rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Delegate the matter to Allah and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to provide you with a good spouse, because at the end of the day, it's all up to Him. No matter how much you do and no matter how much you try to be careful, it is all up to Him. So do your best and have tafweed and make dua, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provide all single men and women with good, righteous spouses. Amen. There is still righteousness in this ummah. I try to be a little, jovial about it in the beginning. I don't mean that there is no righteousness in this ummah, but to find a really righteous person in your imagination, you should also look in the mirror and see if you're that person. If you're looking for a sahabiyya, look in the mirror and see if you are a sahabi, and vice versa.
Barakallahu feekum. So the next question is, does putting on perfume containing alcohol make your clothing impure?
Okay, well, I'll have to deviate from the madhab here and say that I don't believe that alcohol is physically impure. Alcohol is impure to consume, to drink. Alcohol is not physically impure. I don't believe that there is any solid evidence on the physical impurity of alcohol. So if you're a physician and you deal with alcohol all the time, or if you use perfumes that have alcohol or this or that, I believe in the permissibility of that, because alcohol is not impure to touch, it is impure to drink.
Jazakumullah khair. Next question is, what is the ruling on credit cards, and how do we build up credit in a halal manner? What is the ruling on credit cards? And how can one build up credit in a halal way?
Well, credit cards, they're not, the contract, the subject matter of the contract itself is not usurious, but there are clauses in the contract that are. Therefore, credit cards will not be permissible if there is no need for them, because you're signing to a contract that has a clause therein that if you're late, then interest will ensue and you will incur interest. So that clause is not permissible yet, because the subject matter of the contract is not impermissible. We said that this contract would be halal for a need. If you don't need a credit card and the debit card will do for you, and you do not need, then in this case, then you should not have a credit card, period. But if the debit card, when is it that the debit card will be sufficient for you? The debit card will be sufficient for you if you don't necessarily need credit history, because the debit card will pretty much, unless you know otherwise, but it seems that the debit card will do just like the credit card will give you pretty much everything the credit card gives you, except for minor, the sort of minor advantages of the credit card over the debit card that will not be consequential to rulings. But in general, it would be sufficient. The problem is debit cards will not build your credit history. You will not have credit history, right? Right? Or I guess so, right? In this case, for people who need to have credit history, maybe the vast majority of us need to have credit history, then it will be permissible to have a credit card. But certainly to have a credit card with complete commitment to not being sucked into that lifestyle, or you cannot be late, because it is haram. It is haram to pay interest as much as it is haram to charge interest. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Hum sawa." لعن الله آكل الربا وموكله وكاتبيه وشاهديه وكاتبه. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curse the one who devours riba and the one who feeds him, or the one who pays it, and the two witnesses and the scribe. And they said they are equal. So you don't allow yourself to be sucked into this. You pay on time all the time, have the automatic payment, whatever it is, means that will make you pay on time all the time, so that you are not paying interest. Or just use the credit card.